Yo guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be checking out the new patch details that came out a few hours ago. We're going to be going ahead and checking it out, seeing whether the characters are PvE or PvP, seeing what's new, and so on. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So we've got Winter Soldier and Black Widow, the two new characters who both got a new uniform. And Winter Soldier got a new Tier 4, which, as we have predicted last time. However, last time we predicted it to be on Thunderbolts, but we have gotten it way sooner, which is really, really good. So yeah, that's for Winter Soldier, new Tier 4 and new uniform, and Black Widow with a new uniform. The patch update is going to come out tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow, February 19th. And this one, I think it's on American time. I'm not 100% sure. So yeah. The two new uniforms which we have gotten, the Winter Soldier Revolution and Black Widow Venomous. So we're also going to be having a sale. Both of them will be on sale during the New World Boss event, update celebration event, which I think it is also tomorrow. So yeah, we're going to be going ahead and checking it out. I will be skimming through his both of their skills. I'm just going to try and look at the important factors, whether they could be PvP or PvE. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So for his tag, it is a combat supervillain human male. So if he were to be a PvE, he would be trying for against Hulk on Alliance Battle. But we're going to check on his skills, and then we'll decide whether if he's a PvE or PvP, and whether he's good or not. So for the uniform effect, it is applies to himself, increases chain hit damage by 20% and guaranteed crit rate. Which, if I'm not wrong, chain hit damage is for PvP, so that's already a thing that we have to watch out for. His ultimate skill, he has both applies to enemies and self. The enemies, it is burn, bleed, stun, paralysis, and decreases all basic defense by 10%, stacking up to 60. So yeah. As for burn, it deals 40 fire damage and bleed an additional 40 damage every 1 second. For himself, it is a critical rate increase by 40%, ignoring dodge rates, target's dodge rate by 80%, a 100% chance to penetrate to basically iframes, if I'm not wrong, invincible for 9 seconds, and increases basic damage by 40% for one attack. So yeah, so far this looks good, and I think it is a PvP. He might be a PvP. His leadership, it is a 45% increase in physical damage. His tier 2 passive, it is ignores target's dodge rate by 60%, increases skill damage by 35%, and bonus damage by 35%. As for his normal passive, it is just to himself, which is super armor, increasing all basic defense by 5%, increasing all basic attacks by 35%, basic defense by 30%, and speed by 1%. So we're going to check out his skills, but I'll be just skimming through them. So for the first one, it is only applying stun for 3 seconds. The second one, it is bleed and stun. His third one, it is enables attacking enemy who have activated the ignore targeting effect. So I'm pretty sure this is for PvP, but I do not know. Applies to enemy burn, snare, incapacitation, and applies to himself 100% chance to grant all damage immunity, accumulates 10% of pure damage when attacking, 1% increase all basic attacks, each 1% of pure damage accumulated. So for the third skill, I think this is going to be PvP by the looks of it, but I'm not 100% sure. As for his fourth skill, it is bleed, silence, and decreases all basic defense by 10%, stacks up to 50%. And he will recover 30% of his HP and increases all basic attacks by 40%. As for his fifth and last skill, it is applies to enemies, which is burn incapacitation, and for incapacitation, removes active buff, so it's a debuff removal, if I'm not wrong. And applies to self, which is invincible, increases all basic attacks and defense by 45%, all speeds by 1%, and critical rate by 30%. And on top of that, it also removes incapacitation. So from all of these skills that we have seen, my guess is that he's going to be a PvP, but a niche PvP, so it's not going to be meta, if I'm not wrong. That's my guess for Winter Soldier. As for Black Widow, her tags are speed, superhero, human, female, which is the most common typing, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, let's go ahead and check out everything she has. For her uniform effect, it decreases basic damage received by 40%. And her activation for this next one, it activates when she dodges. It is removes all debuffs and 35% chance to penetrate. So this seems like that she's a PvP, but she's going to be quite terrible because that 35% chance to penetrate it's not good at all. So for her tier 2 passive, it is increases guaranteed dodge rate and critical rate 35% and 30%, and skill damage by 40% with an additional 40% bonus damage. A normal passive, it is applies to self, dodge rate increased by 25%, 40% increase of physical attack, and ignores target's dodge rate by 30%. So yeah, so far before we reach to the skills, she looks to be a PvP, but not a great one. Onto her first skill, which is applies to enemy, which is web 3 seconds, which is basically like Spider-Man's, if I'm not wrong, where he webs an opponent and then he stays stunned or webbed for 3 seconds. Her second one, it is stun and paralysis, ignores immunity for 3 seconds for both of them. The third one, it is stun and 80% chance of missing attacks. So that's for enemies. And as for herself, it is increases all basic attack and defense by 60%, all speed by 5%, and critical rate by 40%, with removing incapacitation. And then her next one is 100% chance to grant all damage immunity. So yeah, so far this does not look terrible, but it's not great for PvP. For her fourth skill, enables attacking enemies who have activated the ignore targeting effect. Applies to enemies, which is shock web, removes active buff from target paralysis. So this one is the PvP skill as well. And then her next one is applies to self, invincible, increases basic damage by 100% for one attack. So yeah, so that's for her fourth skill. Although she also has removing active buff, which is she's a debuff removal on her fourth skill, if I'm not wrong. As for her fifth and last skill, it is stun, fear, web, decreases all basic defense by 10%, stacking up. So that's for enemies, and for herself, it recovers 30% of her HP and increases all basic attacks by 50%. So yeah, she looks like she's going to be a PvP, however, she's not going to be a great PvP. She might just be just an otherworld battle meta, which even then she might not even be that. So yeah, both of them seems to be PvP, but they both look like they're not going to do much in PvP. So yeah, moving on to the World Soldiers Tier 4, the new one. It is when the striker is used, applies to himself, increases damage dealt to targets with mark effect by 120%, acquires the following effect for 10 seconds. The activation rate, it is when dealing critical attack, and it applies to enemies, and it gives them a mark for 3 seconds. So by that is that when the mark effect applies, it's going to be given to the enemy for 3 seconds, and for that 3 seconds is going to have an increased damage dealt to those enemies by 120%. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure on how good or bad this is, so if you have any sort of idea, do let me know. But from my guess is that it looks like that it is kind of bad, but I do not know. We've got some new artifacts, which is for the Winter Soldier, which is based on his level 4 or 4 stars. Increases basic damage dealt to superhero and supervillain by 20%. So yeah, so far this one is actually not bad. It's really, really good. So yeah, and for the next one is just new products. This one is just for payments, which I'm not really going to focus on. Game error fixes the numbers of items displayed on the top of the inventory, not matching the numbers shown through the exclamation point button. The issue where Proxima's next attack would not deal any damage after being hit by a specific attack pattern used by Proxima, which is for the last New World Boss Legend Plus, has been fixed. So yeah, those were the 2 game error fixes, and that was all for the new patch details. So yeah, in my opinion, this is not really a terrible update, but yet it's also not a great update, since both of them are probably going to be PvP and not extremely good for PvP. So yeah, that was all for today's video. If you have enjoyed it, please do let me know, and also let me know what do you think about this new update that's going to come out very, very soon. Do you like it? Do you not? What's the problems that you have seen? So yeah, if you have liked it, make sure to subscribe and like, and I'll see you all in the very next video. Goodbye.